so nice to see you.
Hi, Risa. Thank you so much for having me today.
No, I'm super excited because I love all things herb. So, it's a personal thing for me, and health and how herbs can help and how we can prevent disease and, kind of manage our health, especially in midlife and all the things. So you're going to cure us of all things, right, today?
Right. Well, we'll come up with a few ideas.
We'll come up with a few. But I think there's some fundamental things that would be really helpful to understand in terms of our bodies, the way we should be thinking about health and particularly hydration, which is something that we're going to would discuss. But before we get into all of that, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background, your story, how you became an herbalist, an acupuncturist, and an author. She's the author of a wonderful book called Asian American Herbalism that you're going to want to check out. So tell me a little bit of your origin story. You can start wherever you want to start.
Sure. I did not grow up thinking that I would be an acupuncturist or sticking needles in people, but I did grow up in my grandmother's garden and kitchen. So growing up, I was always around Japanese food, fresh food, locally grown food. So that really informed my life, my youth, and then also my current life. I was actually pre-law. I thought I was going to be a lawyer.
Wow.
And yeah, and in that process, I had some physical issues that acupuncture really helped me with, sciatica, back pain at a very young age. And so I became curious. How does acupuncture work? And I ended up in acupuncture school. And a big piece of that school and education is herbalism, is Asian herbalism. And some of the herbs in these big, dense textbooks were the herbs and foods from my grandmother's kitchen and garden. So that really brought it full circle for me. And that the identity piece and the medicine as well is what my book is all about.
That's pretty awesome. That's so amazing, right? And when it feels like a natural fit, that it doesn't feel like you're forcing anything, is the best way to start, I think, right? So let's talk a little bit about the power of herbs, right? I think, everybody knows about herbal supplements and yada, 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 but there are some specific herbs that are better, or I guess more effective, or things that you could just use in your daily life that perhaps, you're not really thinking of as medicine per se. Can you talk to me a little bit about some of these herbs that you have identified as being kind of really great sources towards daily health?
Absolutely. So, working in a traditional Chinese medicine clinic, there's access to hundreds of herbs. And a lot of the more obscure herbs or difficult to source herbs are for conditions and illnesses. What I found though is a lot of the herbs we find in the kitchen and the garden, those are great for just quality of life, feeling energetic throughout our day, having healthy digestion, easing our aches and pains, which I find in clinic to be the most useful for many of us. So I tend to focus on things like goji berry and jujube dates, fresh ginger, chrysanthemum tea, things that many of us can find in our local markets.
That's awesome. So let's take goji berries for instance. What are some of the benefits of including goji berries, and how do you even eat them? How do you intake them?
That's great. Goji berries, they are a dried fruit that can be found easily online. And often nowadays, even like my local Rayleigh's has bags of dried goji berries. And they can be eaten like a dried fruit, kind of like trail mix or dried raisins. They can also be added to foods like oatmeal, and then they become hydrated, again, like a raisin, or added to daily herbal tea. And goji berries are considered a blood herb in Chinese medicine, so they build and nourish your blood.
And what would you say, we had talked about this on our pre-call about kind of paying attention to our blood, right? And the flow and the health of our blood. In TCM particularly, that is also, I'm assuming, related to chi and all the things. So can you kind of talk to me a little bit about the core of the importance of paying attention to our blood health, essentially.
Sure. So the basis, I'm going to take it back one notch. The basis of TCM is yin and yang theory. And I think nowadays most people are familiar with that symbol, the white side and the black side. But yin and yang in everyday life is chi or energy and blood or fluids. So that's to say that our fluids, our blood, our juicy vitality is fundamental to our health, mind, body, and spirit. And as we age, I'm currently personally in beginning of perimenopause. Our blood wanes. We become drier. I felt that myself. Risa, I don't know if you can attest to that as well. Skin, hair,
Everything.
everything. So I've been really digging deeper into like, okay, well, how do we not just reclaim, but preserve the hydration and the blood and that juiciness that we have?
Right. Because the juiciness it's not just about like, let's say blood flow or whatever. It's just really about all the other organs and, parts of our body that it affects, I'm assuming.
It's a great point. So in Chinese medicine, blood includes our red blood cells. Like if you get a cut, what we see, it includes that blood, but it also includes our lymphatic fluid, spinal fluid, and all the kind of fluids circulating in our system. So that's to say, someone who, say, is anemic, or they're being told by their Western doctor they need to build blood nourishing herbs are going to be helpful. However, even for folks who aren't anemic and don't have a Western diagnosis like that, blood herbs are going to be wonderful for graceful aging, mental health, and sleep.
Wow. How is that? Like how is it helping you sleep and how is it helping you have, I'm assuming like more clarity, being able to make better decisions, I'm hoping,
Yes.
or is it more preventative for like, any kind of cognitive decline? How are these herbs helping?
Sure.
Because that's a pretty wide scope, but that's like really fascinating because they're so essential, especially as we're aging, right?
It's a big statement to say that blood nourishing herbs and medicinals can affect sleep, mental health, graceful aging. And so let's do like 6 months of acupuncture school in 2 minutes. So ultimately,
Sorry.
in Chinese medicine, our mind and our mental health live in our heart, not the brain. Stay with me. And the heart is a blood-rich organ. It is literally pumping blood throughout our whole system. This energetic or kind of spiritual component that Chinese medicine brings to our understanding of the body and mind says that actually when our heart physically and spiritually is healthy, we have enough blood and fluids to help us be active appropriately during the day and rest deeply during the night. Our natural rhythms are in balance. That also speaks to our mental health. When our heart and our blood, according to Chinese medicine, are healthy, that we have a mental equilibrium. We're tethered, we're anchored and grounded. That makes
Wow.
a bit more
Wow.
clear.
That's so, no, you described it so well. And it just, this is what I love about Eastern medicine in general, right? Whether it's TCM or whatnot. It's, it's about the integration and looking at the body as a whole, right? That we're not, Western medicine, of course, as we all know, it tends to segregate and tends to like isolate, if you have a kidney ailment, we treat the kidney and that's it, right? We don't look at the whole body. And the fact that, foundationally, TCM is looking not only at the mind, body, but also the spirit, which is pretty mind blowing, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense also, right? So it's, so when you're talking about like trying to find that balance, how do you know that you're not in balance?
Mm. Well, and I just want to acknowledge what you just said, Risa. I find too that bringing in the physical, mental, and spiritual all together especially as we age, can just be so validating because I find that in modern day life and growing older, myself included, we're out of balance because we know it. Achy
Mm.
joints in the morning, digestion's off, insomnia, things that interfere with our daily life are the signs that we're out of balance. And oftentimes, and I love my Western doctor. I am all about Western medicine, but there's a lot of things that the doctors, they don't necessarily have anything for, such as, say, low energy throughout the day. Even insomnia is really difficult to treat in Western or allopathic medicine.
Without a
Um,
pill.
it-
Right.
right.
With TCM, for example, when you are treating yourself with these, herbs, for example, and I know that, TCM has a wider range of different modalities, whether it's cupping or acupuncture or gua sha, or, I feel like a
Mhm.
lot of these things are in essence related to the blood because it's kind of about circulation and kind of creating flow within your body. Would you agree with that, or am I completely off?
No, I would agree with that. All of the TCM is about bringing the body into balance. So whether that's herbs, nutrition, modalities like acupuncture, cupping, gua sha, they're all going to support the body's natural flow of qi and blood. However, I will say with blood specifically, we generate fresh blood based on what we eat. So eating good foods, drinking water, tea, hydrating. So that is specifically why herbs are really, really powerful at building blood specifically.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like I hydrate all the time. But I recently went to my acupuncturist and she's like, "You're dehydrated." I'm like, "What?" Um, and, there's this whole, not thought process, but there's this whole idea that when you're thirsty, it means you're already dehydrated. It's like too late, right? So if I think I'm hydrated, but I'm not, what should I be doing? Like, what kind of herbs, per se, would help me hydrate better, I guess, whether it's more efficiency or, I think I maybe, it's psychological for me. I think I'm probably drinking more than I am. And I think that's probably pretty
Mm.
common,
Hmm.
where people like have their big thermos and they think, oh, this is all I need. And then they realize it's just actually not enough. And also with your food intake, right? So you don't know if you're eating a lot of salty foods or whatever, you may be counteracting some of the hydration.
Right.
Um, but can you talk to me a little bit about the herbs and like the power of the herbs in terms of creating better blood flow and what herbs you're talking about?
Sure. And I want to say too, to your point, even folks who are properly hydrated, people who are the A plus student getting all of their cups of water a day, all of their ounces, they can still have a depletion of blood,
Mm.
right? Even people that are hydrated, they could still run very, very dry, for example. So we want herbs that are going to hydrate, nourish, and then this is deep TCM theory, but these herbs energetically strengthen the organs in our body that are going to help create more blood. So it's quite a sophisticated medicine. And again, focusing on the herbs that are easier to find for everyday folk like ourselves. Jujube dates, Risa, familiar with jujube dates? Like a dried
Wow. I
date.
actually didn't realize they're much more red. I thought they were
Yeah.
more brown.
Yeah, and they can look brown. Sometimes they're dried and sliced, but it's a dried fruit, so it's dry, but it's still a little plump. Yeah. And there's a gentle sweetness, so people will just eat this like a dried fruit. Um, and this is considered to be such a strong blood and qi nourishing herb that in China it's called a beauty tonic. It's said to preserve and restore the juicy vitality of youth. So jujube day, I would say if I had one herb for us today, that's what it would be.
Wow. And so how many do you have to eat a day? I mean, is it something that you
Oh,
put in a smoothie? Is it something, I guess you could eat it in all sorts of ways, right? Chop it up and put it in your cereal or whatever.
yeah. The it can be had taken as a dried fruit, but studies have shown that when it's boiled or put into a hot tea, there's even more of those medicinal constituents that come from it.
Oh, wow.
So there's a few ways, and when I'm in clinic with a patient, this is also how I work with them. Um, it's a conversation of, well, if we know the herb, we know we want jujube dates. Well, how is that going to work for you as an individual? So for folks who are home cooks and they make homemade stocks and broth, putting in 3 to 5 of these dates, which don't really flavor the stock, so it plays well in many recipes, is a great way to get the medicine. For
Wow.
folks who drink herbal tea, adding a jujube date to your teapot is a really nice and easy way to do it. So it just kind of depends on the person's lifestyle.
But that's so great that it's so versatile and it's not, and it doesn't create a like, pungent taste or it doesn't, you know what I mean? I love the fact that it's healthy and then you can still eat it afterwards, I guess. I don't know. Or you just
Yeah,
have it, like if you have it in soup stock, you can like leave the chunk in there and eat the chunk or whatever it is.
can eat a chunk. You can fish it out, especially if you're making a stock from scratch and you're like fishing out old vegetables and a meat. You can just throw it out with those scraps. Yeah, and the medicine has infused into the food.
That is so, so awesome. So, what other herbs would you say are good for blood, to kind of rejuvenate the
You know, some
system?
some other herbs or foods. Goji berries, again, we talked about earlier. Another dried fruit. Dried mulberries, which or fresh mulberries, but I'm finding more and more dried mulberries at various markets. Fresh blueberries is a blood
Really?
and fluid tonic. Yes. Cinnamon can be hydrating as well. And this is
Are you talking
the
about cinnamon stick or cinnamon powder?
all of it, all of it. Cinnamon is hydrating. Rose, people who maybe are drinking rose tea to validate rose is very hydrating and good for the heart, which speaks in TCM to mental health and sleep. And then one final herb, and this is the most herbalist herb that you would have to go to an herb shop for a special order, and it's marshmallow leaf. And marshmallow
Hmm.
leaf, it's also sold as marshmallow root, but I'm talking about the leaf. It is so hydrating that if you make a tea with marshmallow leaf and you let it sit there on the table for a while with the herbs in the water will almost become a little viscous. Not gelatinous, but there's a little bit of a thickness to it because it is so hydrating, almost like a gel.
Oh, wow. So similar to like when you look at a marshmallow, right? It's
Yeah,
yeah, I
yes,
don't know.
yeah,
But yeah, that's so cool.
yeah.
And so like so say you drink rose tea, right?
Mm.
Or you put, goji berries in your smoothie, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
What kind of, I guess, indicators would help you to understand like that it's working, like that
Sure.
it's, because everybody's different, right? And it may affect other people, certain people differently than other people. But are there certain indicators that people should be looking out for, that they just feel like they have more energy? Is it that they're sleeping better? They have more clarity? Is there, I'm just wondering, like,
Mhm.
or maybe it's all of the above. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 points here. The first is um, oftentimes we take these herbs for folks who know the power of the herbs and they've seen that whether it's because they were in their grandmother's kitchen, they grew up with the medicine, or they trust their acupuncturist who's prescribing. Some folks will just add it into their diet, kind of similar to when maybe a healthcare provider says you benefit from more iron in your diet, and then you start having more dark leafy greens and maybe animal protein, things like that. But to your point directly, Risa, how do we know the herbs are working? And what I like to say is that you should feel the herbs you're taking. If you're taking
Mm,
herbs daily, let's say a medicinal dose of a tea would be a cup twice a day. And you're doing that, say, for 3 days, you should feel something. If it's working, you might notice if you're taking, say, a blood nourishing tea, that you're sleeping a little better. You might notice that there's less of an edge, more of an emotional equilibrium. But it is different for everyone. So it is personal, but in knowing a little bit about what the herbs do, that can help us kind of work our expectations. Um, and then oftentimes I will say when people are dedicated, this is the A+ student, they're like, I'm going to take my tea twice a day. Um, a week is a great place to take a moment, check in, and notice if you feel better. If you do, you can continue. If you've kind of plateaued, maybe you're done with that herb for the moment. Or I always say if there's a headache or indigestion, maybe I would stop. That's not the herb for you. So
right.
it's a lot of consideration.
Right. No, but I think it also helps to kind of um, teach yourself how to be in tune with your body, right? Which is not easy for people, especially if you're not used to it and you're just kind of going through your day and not, that's where kind of all the other things like meditation and all the things, right? Sitting with yourself kind of really help to feel where you're at right now, right? And then kind of assess what you may be lacking. I just sometimes I feel like we're just so like go, 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 go.
Right.
It's hard to kind of just take a moment and then all of a sudden we crash, right? We crash and then we figure out, oh God, I need something to help
Right.
me. Um, and so this is not that. This is not like the immediate fix. This is, I feel, a lot more in terms of the prevention lane.
Hmm.
And then it's also the treatment lane. But so if I were to take all these herbs, for example, would I feel like my skin not being so dry now, or some of the perimenopausal symptoms that a lot of women face?
Sure.
Is that something that I should kind of be cognizant of?
So one thing to clarify on my end, because I threw out a bunch of herbs, I would recommend if you're watching this, listening in, and you're thinking, yes, I want to try this out, I would choose one herb
Mm,
from what I threw out there and take that as a tea, or if you buy that herb in a tincture form or some other form, a powder, take it based on the instructions on the label, and start there. Keep it simple. And then kind of note to yourself as you start, why am I taking this? It's almost like a food journal, right? Why am I taking this? And then note, maybe even setting an alarm on your phone in a week to check back and consider, is there any improvement? Um, and it is tricky because I find also with herbs, more than say Western pharmaceuticals, once they work, we kind of forget that we ever took them.
yeah.
It's very quick to be like, oh, I feel better. And then we stop taking the herbal supplement or we stop going to acupuncture. So it is quite subtle. And final note here is if you do that, so you take an herb, say you do jujube tea, 2 cups a day for a week, and you feel amazing, that also might be encouragement to go see a provider, like a practitioner, like an acupuncturist or an herbalist in your community, to go even deeper and to personalize the medicine even more.
That's so interesting. Brings me to think about, when purchasing or researching
Mm,
herbs, what should we be thinking about and what should we be identifying, because not all herbs are created equal, as we know.
right.
There's a lot of crap out there as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So how do we discern and how do we separate and know, okay, this is, you know, the real thing. This is not whether it's, you're trying to look for organic products or, only products. If you're, I don't know, is there certain kind of guidelines that you yourself, I mean, I know you also sell different kinds of blends, herbal blends, and that sort of thing. But what should people be looking for when they're shopping for herbs?
Sure. And this is a big part of my work, because I do believe the herbs, ideally, that grow in our near us in our bioregion share a resonance, an energetic resonance, and are the most powerful. Similar to eating a freshly grown strawberry versus one that's been imported from a far away. It tastes better, and the medicine or the nutrients are stronger. So at the highest level, farmers markets, if you have a local herb shop, supporting them, even natural food stores will have high quality herbs. They might even be considered like culinary or kitchen herbs. And then there's a direct source. However, the reality is, for myself as well, is that we're ordering a lot of these things online, and that's all well and good. I tend to focus on two things. One is a reputable, larger herb supplier like Mountain Rose Herbs, Pacific Botanicals, or Spring Wind Herbs for Chinese herbs. Another way, finally, to go is with like a small business like myself, finding somebody probably on social media that you like the educational information they're giving, you like their products, and supporting their work is also, I find, a really fun and inspired way to go.
That's great. So in terms of your herbal blends, because you have several, so how do you choose your herbal blends? Where are you sourcing them? Where did this whole idea of like, because it's not easy, first of
Right.
all. And there's so many different combinations that you can create. And I mean, it's pretty infinite, I would say. So what do you focus on?
So the first 10 years of my practice, I really focused on traditional Chinese medicine teas, drawing from jars like I have here, and then doing custom blends for people. I'd come in, look at their tongue, read their pulse, talk, and then I would create the custom tea blend. And then COVID happened, and I had to shut down my physical practice. And I started creating tea blends that I found to be effective for my practice, but also tasty. So things
Mm,
that had mint or tulsi, sweetened with goji berries or mulberries, things that might appeal to people not just as medicine, but also as like a daily wellness ritual. That's kind of how I landed on the specific tea blends. And the one for today, for our conversation that comes to mind, is called Moonchild. And it is red raspberry leaf, mulberry, oat straw, oat tops, lemon balm. And this blend is for nourishing blood, which is a little obscure for most people. So it's also marketed as like a postpartum or like a hormonal balancing tea. But ultimately, the root of it is that it's a blood nourishing tea.
that's so amazing. Um, and then, so that's just a loose tea, right? And then people just, that's awesome. And I
Risa, when
mean,
you
you have,
drink tea, oh sorry, do you tend to do loose leaf or bags, or what's your jam?
I do both.
Yeah,
I'm Japanese, so loose tea is, I prefer loose tea,
yeah.
but because that's just what I grew up with. But of course, the tea bag here and there is fine too. If it's,
Yeah.
I don't drink caffeine though, so I'm a big herbal drinker, herbal tea
Mm.
drinker.
Mhm.
So when I can get it loose, it's great. You know. Um, so I want to do a just switch over to your book because I
Sure.
find it so interesting. Tell me a little bit about your book. What can people discover and learn through your book? And I think you have a
Sure.
copy there, right?
I do. So this is the book, Asian American Herbalism, Traditional and Modern Healing Practice for Everyday Wellness. There's over 100 recipes in here. And truth be told, when I started writing, I didn't know my editor also didn't know how many recipes there would be. It became a herbal cookbook of sorts. And so I speak to traditional Chinese medicine, which is this thousand-year-old sophisticated medical system. Um, but how do we actually look at that and receive the benefits of Chinese medicine in the context of modern day life? So that's really what the book explores. Um, and I think one of my strengths is breaking down complex topics like blood in a TCM sense into ways where we can not just understand it, but make it useful for everyday life. That's my hope. And so with each recipe, there's even some storytelling about what the herbs do so that we can know them better and also in that process know ourselves better as well.
That's awesome. Oh my God, Erin, this has been so great. So if people want to learn more about you, follow you, all the things, where do they go?
Yes, thank you, Risa. My website is herbfolkshop.com, and I have herbal tea blends, heirloom green tea powder from Japan, as well as online courses. So I do introduction to traditional Chinese medicine courses virtually, and that can all be found on my website. And I am also active on Instagram at herbfolkmedicine.
Amazing, amazing. Erin, thank you so, so much. I'm going to go have a cup of tea right now.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a delight.